Running it straight between 2 and 3 o'clock. We're talking rugby league for the next hour. Sammy here, no Kemp today. He can't join us, so it'll just be me. But text in any time on 8833, or you can give us a call 0800 150 811. We'd love to talk to you. Sorry, there's just like a fly or a mosquito in the background or something.
Sammy won't put me on.
Anyway.
Here he is. He's finally. Yeah.
Tony,
come on, mate. I
thought
am
you
here.
weren't showing up today.
I am here.
Okay.
I'm here. I've brought in an ambulance because, mate, you've had some wounds coming into you.
A couple of stakes into the belly. It's fine.
I know, but don't worry. I've bought my first aid kit.
I'll
patch him up and get you ready for Saturday night.
Yeah, you're like you're sort of like the wise sage or the sort of the battle-hardened captain.
The
where
thing that I want to know.
The scout goes into battle. No, hold on. The scout goes into battle and sort of gets wounded and runs back, and the captain's sitting there with all these stab wounds and half the head's coming off, and just say, mate, you get in behind me. I know what's going on.
That's called the general. I'm up on the hill, and I'll send you in. Then there's a few more to go on before me.
You've been in a few wars.
That's exactly right. Because I know how to take those hits. And what I really want to know is, why did you throw that comment out a month before the final series?
Because in the context of the video, Tony, and you of all people should know to go and watch the full, go and listen to the full audio rather than just taking the snippet like it's some sort of Fox League NRL 360.
Who cut the content?
I don't know. I'm not putting any names out there, but it was within the context of me saying at this point in time, Kempy, I was making a judgment a month out. That's exactly what it is, because I said in that video as well, in the audio as well, I said there's nothing stopping me from, if the Warriors win the next 4 games by 60 points and the Panthers drop a couple, why I wouldn't be sitting here saying we're going to win the grand final.
Are you going to own it?
What do you mean?
Like you said, they weren't not going to win it. Are you going to own it?
I 100% I will.
Okay.
But I never said they can't. But I never said they can't.
That's all I want to know. Well, now you need to let it go because we've still got a month to go.
Are you a multi-millionaire? Because you clearly just get every prediction right in the world, right? Every horse you've ever picked, 7-1, right?
No,
or do you get a couple wrong along the way?
I've got plenty wrong.
Okay, there you go. It's sport, mate. That's
but
what happens.
I let it go. You just can't let it go.
Well, we can decide on October 1st when the grand final's done and dusted.
Like I said before, you've thrown your sprat line out before it's reached the harbour.
Just turn him off again, Robbie. We don't need this sort of dribble for the next hour. Let's talk some NRL, please. Some rugby league for the next hour. We're going to catch up with Jimmy Smith very shortly. He's a host over in SEN and, of course, played for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Usually hear him on Staffy on a Monday and a Friday, but we're going to hear a little bit more in-depth analysis about the NRL and this run home into the finals. We always start off the show talking about the game from the weekend, Kempy. The Titans on Friday night. It was a scrappy game for the Warriors, and, of course, playing against 12 men for the majority of the game. Thing that stuck out a little bit for me was what you've talked about, and particularly in the Rabbitohs and the Roosters games in the rain, when the Warriors try and go a little bit too wide early and not go through the middle, which is their strength, they sometimes start to fall away. And I felt like the Titans dominated that middle third of the park on Friday night. Yeah,
so let's address probably what everyone is carrying on about. Look, a win, whether it's ugly or not, this time of the year is really important, and they got the job done. So, the focus shouldn't really be on what they did wrong or what they did right. It should be that they were good enough to get the job done. Because I'll tell you now, this team that was in that position last year didn't get the job done.
Correct.
At 18-all, I think the Titans go on and win it, but they showed enough resilience. And I look at the other way, Sammy. I think, well, they'll learn from that game and they'll go a little bit better. I think they're scratchy at the moment. I think with a month to go, they need to pick some form up to get into the finals, and especially if they're going to be playing Broncos at home in front of 50,000 people. If they do finish second and third, as the table's sort of predicting at the moment, and they can't play that type of football. But the thing with it, to finish third, they've got to win all these games, and we said that. We've talked it in batches. We've said first 5 games, next 5 games, bye, next 4 games, which they was really scratchy, and this last 5 games. Yeah, and we've said if they win the last 5, they're going to be in the 4. Now, we were happy at the beginning of the season if they were scratching in the 8.
Yes.
Now that they've performed so well, people are starting to pull apart the side, thinking that they're champion contenders. Well, they are actually champion contenders, because no one, Penrith are hot, Brisbane probably is hot, but the Warriors are sitting third and they're a little bit scratchy. I would be more on the side of they got the job done. Because last year they wouldn't have got the job done. The year before they wouldn't have got the job done.
No, and I agree. And I said it. I said it yesterday and Monday and Tuesday, and I've said it today as well. That at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you get the 2 points in games like that where you're not playing your best, and there's certain parts of the game that you wish you did better. As long as you're getting 2 points, you can work on those, and you're sort of not worse off getting the win. But you're right. I think there's still room for improvement, and they do probably have to go to another level if they want to, challenge.
So Jess Devaga comes back, gets thrown straight back into the side. All right, you look at the bench, you don't know whether Curran really should be there, or if they're going to use Jess Devaga if your mate Egan goes down in the middle of the park at that hooker position. It takes away from what the team is actually doing. So they've got a month to get through, and hopefully, we've talked about it, suspension, injury and referees' decisions, and finish in that third position. I think if they can do that, going up to the Dolphins in their last game, travelling back down to Brisbane to play them in front of a packed-out Lang Park, what do they call that now, Suncorp?
Yeah.
50,000 people? Mate, it's a final. So, and if they get that game, well, you've got to hope that in a month's time, and this is Penrith, I'm now a Penrith supporter, Nathan Cleary doesn't go down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Heaven forbid that they lose Leota or a Fisher Harris or even a Yell, you know what I mean? A Crichton. In a month's time, things can look totally different. But at the moment, I'm really happy that the Warriors went out against the Titans there, played as ugly as it got. They'll work on that, but they got the 2 points. And we know how important they are in the last month of football. If they want to finish in that third, fourth spot, Sam, they don't win it outside that four, they've got a chance.
Another Cameron Smith-esque performance from Wade Egan at dummy half as well. What did you make of the two Simbins though, Kempy? Nia Corday for the hand slap and Fotuaika the send off.
Don't get me started about referees. All right, their referees and the bunker are gonna ruin a finals run this year for one team.
I felt like the Nia Corday one was just almost in response to the red card. It was almost like an evening
he's
up.
Got to be really careful, Murata, because he's red flagged. All right, so he's been sent off 3 times this year, served some suspensions. Referees have got him, like when you sit down, so the referees, this is how it goes. They go into the change rooms beforehand, they open up their book and they go, right, Marata no Kore, all these areas we were looking at. Basically what I'm saying is he's at the top of the list, so they're watching for him all the time. So anything that he does, Sammy Hewat goes out there and slaps their hand down there. He gets probably a warning. Don't do that again, Sam. Marata, mate, in the bin.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Who was your 3 points for on Friday night?
Oh, Sean Johnson, country mile. Like Sean Johnson, 2 tries. You know what I mean? Like if he doesn't score those 2 tries, set one up and kick all those goals, they don't win. So the Dally M, I thought he secured it in that game. I think in the next month of football, he plays to that form. Mate, it's rigged if he doesn't get it. There isn't a player in the competition over these last 10 weeks that have played as good as Sean Johnson.
Got to take a break. We're going to have Jimmy Smith on the other side. You can text her any thoughts that you have for Jimmy on 8833. So we'll take a break and come back with Jimmy after that. Listening to Running It Straight here on SENZ. Thanks to South East Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. 16 minutes past 2 here on Running It Straight. Text coming through on 8833 and see all your comments on the YouTube live as well. Some people still ripping into me as I can see, Kempy, but we've got to get to Jimmy Smith across the ditch in Aussie. He is a host of the afternoon show on SEN in Sydney. He, of course, is a former South Sydney Rabbitoh and calls a lot of the games for SEN. I think we've got him on the line now. G'day, Jimmy. Welcome in.
Hello, gentlemen. How is the level of confidence over there in New Zealand, right?
Well, Jimmy, it's funny you asked that question because Sammy Hewat's come out a month out, and I said to him, mate, it's like your wife says, you're just coming out a little bit too early, and called that the Warriors can't make it. So,
well, okay, I'm going to put it like this to you, Jimmy. Take away the Warriors angle for a second here. If you had a gun to your head and you had one choice for who was going to win the premiership, is there seriously any other option other than Penrith right now?
I actually said it earlier this week, boys, too. I think it's roll up. Who wants to be the runners-up in the 2023 NRL season? Because, there are scenarios where the Broncos could win. There's certainly a scenario where the Storm could win it. You could even entertain a scenario where the Warriors could win it, but the vast majority of the scenarios that I've thought about, it's Penrith Panthers winning the comp again in 2023.
They are looking very, very good a month out, Jimmy. But as you know, and you've played in that competition like myself, a key injury in the Penrith Panthers, and I'm talking about it in the number 7 jersey, and I think it throws those gates wide open. That's why I said to Sammy, I think he's called it a month too early. We've got that run home, Jimmy. The 8's making a run for it. The teams that are in the 8 and just outside at 9 and 10 as well. What have you got coming in late? Because I think the top 4's pretty well set, but what have you got coming in late?
Yeah, I agree with you, Kempy. I'm not sure I agree with you with one injury, the Panthers, but anyway, we can get back to that. But yeah, I reckon probably in this order, Penrith, Brisbane, Warriors, Melbourne. Now, I think the Warriors play last week in southeast Queensland. So if they've got a semi-final at Suncorp Stadium, 2nd v 3rd, they might even stay there the week, which is interesting one with their preparations. But as far as the bottom of the top 8, I reckon your South Sydney, North Queensland, Cronulla on the back of that surprise victory against the Rabbitohs, and then the Newcastle Knights, who are finishing incredibly well. Oh, well, maybe I phrase it this way. Kalen Ponga is finishing incredibly well, and he's dragging the Newcastle Knights with him.
The interesting one about the Sharks, Jimmy, it's funny how one game just completely changes people's perceptions, because we had that with the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago. There were people out there saying that they were going to go undefeated heading into the finals, thinking they could win all of the last 10 games. Then they dropped 2 in a row. The Sharks, similarly, everyone's saying they're on the slide way they go outside of the 8. One good game against the Rabbitohs, and all of a sudden people have them back in the picture. Is that sort of how it just feels at the moment, where week by week, depending on what happens, the team's fortunes completely change?
Yeah, well, we've all done our projections, haven't we, Sammy? And then every week you go, oh, right, well, I got that one wrong, and that side overperformed or underperformed. And when you talk about underperformance, we're still waiting for South Sydney to get going. And then overperformed has been Cronulla and Newcastle. And then the other part about it is, too, like you've got those sides that are there, like Canberra won, but convinced no one. Parramatta won, convinced no one. The Roosters won, convinced no one. So that's the state of the competition. It's really interesting, and there are some massive games coming up for the final 4 weeks that are just going to be so influential about ladder position. But I think each side has the opportunity to take control of their destiny in that those 6 teams that are fighting out for the bottom of the top 8. But we're yet to see them really take control.
I think you're right around the Knights. I think Kalen Ponga's playing really, really well, and they've got a decent run home. That 1 point that they have in their advantage at the moment, if they can get that game away, St. George in the last game, and finish with that 1 point advantage, I think they finish as high as 5th for me, Jimmy. Are you talking, when you're talking, well, let's go back to that question about Nathan Cleary. Are you talking that even if they do lose Nathan Cleary, that this Penrith side is that far ahead of everyone else in the competition?
Well, I think you changed the conversation on it, Kempy, don't you? But even when Jack Cogger went in there, and if you had all the other parts to it, and there's so many parts to it, with Isaiah Yeo and Jerome Luai and Dylan Edwards in particular, But even with Jack Cogger going in, who was a very serviceable first grader, obviously he's not Nathan Cleary. And Nathan's last couple of games have just been extraordinary. But they come back to the field, but I don't think you discount them. I still think them playing their best footy, even with Jack Cogger in there, I could still see them winning on grand final day.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll tend to differ with that because I think there's a couple of teams that probably could step above them, especially with this competition in the 17th team lengthening out the form. Let's just talk a little bit about the Warriors, mate. That game against Canberra last week, they got a game against the West Tigers. Against the Titans last week. They got the game against the Tigers this week. People are talking about the Warriors not playing their best football over the last month, yet they're still getting a win. They've got a favourable run home. Do you think the favourable run home, Jimmy, is too soft going into the finals for them?
No, I don't think so, Kempy. I reckon there's so much work that Coach Webster would be doing with them. I get the sense that his attention to detail is very, very good. And remember, you're in this competition not with other teams, but with yourself. And there's probably going to be some selection issues that come up as far as Warriors 17. So you know what it's like, Kempy. There's always competition within a group, let alone with, the teams you come up against. And if you're a Warriors player and you're a fringe player, and there's an opportunity to go and play in the semi-finals and finish top four, they're the big games that you're really keen to play in. So I don't see the soft draw as being an issue. In fact, I think it can work in their favour. And, confidence, I know Sammy doesn't have it, but if the Warriors can build it and continue to build it leading into the semi, there is a part of me that says if that first week of the semi-finals is against the Broncos at Suncorp and there's 50,000 people there and 30,000 are supporting the Broncos and 20,000 are there to support the Warriors in a final, I could see them winning that game.
Yeah, so can I.
I said can. Can is in my vernacular, boys. Okay, it's just I've never said can't.
The boat is slowly swinging here, Jimmy.
So, Jimmy, when it comes to finals football, and I'm talking the whole finals, week 1 all the way through to grand final, what's the difference maker for the top teams? Because looking through the schedule this year, if you looked at the 4 or the 5 premiership favourites in the form of Melbourne, Penrith, Brisbane, Melbourne, probably Souths, and the Warriors. The Warriors haven't beaten any of those other 4 teams this year. They've lost to all 4. When it comes to finals, what's the difference maker between teams that go on and teams that go out?
Well, Kempy might know this better than I, but I look at key position players with a great deal of experience, either at grand finals or representative games. So if you start going through the sides there, then aside from the hooker and the fullback at Penrith, then it's tick. And I'll include the lock forward as well. Isaiah Yeo, Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary. Then you go to the Broncos, Adam Reynolds, Ezra Mam, no. Billy Walters, no. Reece Walsh, yes. So you've got 2 out of the 4 there. The Warriors, Sean Johnson, yes. And then Wade Egan, no.
Chance
to a degree. But Tohu Harris, I would add in that. But here's the outlier for all of this. Think about the Melbourne Storm and think about Ryan Pappenhausen back into that side. Yeah. So then your spine looks like Pappenhausen, Munster, Hughes, Grant. It doesn't get any better.
No, you did right, Jimmy. That's a fantastic analysis of what we've got coming up. I like the Storm. I think they're real smoky coming into this last month, but I won't be like Sammy making a call out 4 weeks out from the final start. Hey, look, Jimmy, I want to ask you a question. I had this on the breakfast this morning talking about Payne Haas, and I said that the Australian Rugby Union will throw their hat in the ring in and around trying to get him contracted to them, and it looks like he's gone to the open market. But where do you sit with the CBA and contract negotiations like this being done this time of year going into a final series? Because there's so many grey areas in that CBA. Where are we at with that? Because that needs to be sorted out.
Meeting today. So meeting today between the NRL and the Rugby League Players Association. Peter V'landys has now gone on the record and said he could sort it out in a day. Keith Newton has put his hand up and said, right, well, let's get it done. Whether they've settled on a mediator or not. The crazy part about it, Kempy, is that the issues that they are working through are not the big issues. The big issues are being decided. What should you get paid? What percentage of revenue? What should the girls get paid? Where do we apportion these parts of revenue? Basically, it's around Well, we want privacy laws and legal requirements that are mandatory across all employment contracts in Australia. So that's very straightforward, or should be. And then the other part, which I think is the real sticking point, and that is around transparency. So how much revenue are you making? If you're in a revenue sharing agreement, how do you expect the person who you're in that agreement with to accept something that doesn't have full transparency about how much revenue you're actually making? That's the concern of the Rugby League Players Association. I spoke at length with Clint Newton yesterday, just off air, just hearing his concerns around things. It's all very straightforward. They just need to get into that room and sort it out. And then you can start having clearer understandings about what the future holds for someone like a Payne Haas, where there's going to be interest, whether inside of rugby league or outside of it. And we know there's going to be significant interest, and what the Brisbane Broncos and anyone else can do to hang on to Payne Haas in rugby league.
Yeah. The part of this that really sort of is a sticking point with me is it seems to be, I get that they're 95% of the way there, but it seems to be that some of the key areas that need to be looked at, I'm talking about pre and post career, and also the way that these players are being managed these days, they've sort of gone by the wayside in all this conversation. Is there being talk about, for me, around player management, for instance, and the way that you can pick up an accredited agency, that being policed better so that we don't have all of this issue that we're having in the game at the moment with them?
Well, I think that's separate to the collective bargaining agreement, but I think it's an area that does need some inspection. People, basically, if you pay your money, Kempy, you can be a rugby league manager.
Yeah.
Right. And which leads to an openness of the market. So there's the positives associated with that, but it then also leads to a lack of skill associated with those people who do manage some of these high profile players. And you've got to remember, it's the low profile players as well too. The guys who get one, maybe two contracts within the NRL that have to do the best for themselves for those two contracts before they're, for want of a better term, they're spat out of the system, because remember, it's professional sport and it's pretty cutthroat. They need to maximise what they can get, and you just hope, and remember, hope's not a strategy, you just hope that their manager is doing the best for them.
Very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out before the season wraps up. Jimmy, just finally a couple quick ones to finish, maybe on the Warriors. Who do you see as the real key for them heading into the final four games and into the finals? And if we can just park Sean Johnson, because I think that's a very common one. Who's somebody else that you think is sort of the key for the Warriors moving into the finals?
All right, I'll identify three players then.
Beautiful.
I think Wade Egan's form this year has been career best.
Who would you compare Wade Egan to, just quickly, Jimmy?
I got a interesting look from Corey Parker about 4 or 5 years ago when I was calling an under-20s game at Penrith, and Wade Egan scored 4 tries, all of them different, all of them showcasing the skills that he had. And I made a comparison to Cameron Smith.
Hang on, he hasn't finished.
Okay.
So I'll go with most. Look, he's not Cameron Smith, and no one was, right? So he's the greatest of all time.
There you go.
But the way he engages markers, you have a look at the way he engages markers. And, Adam Fanua-Blake is fantastic at getting over the advantage line. He's really helped by what Wade Egan does with the markers, which is a classic Cameron Smith ploy. Harry Grant does it very well also. The other one who I think is really important is Tohu Harris. So a lot of stuff with teams now come off their 13. Tohu does it better than most. And I just wonder how Staffy's going with that petition for Michael Maguire to get him to play for the Kiwis.
Gathering momentum.
Spectacular. And then the third, but not the final player, I think Dylan Walker off the bench has been incredible. And he plays a 13 type role. He plays a middle forward type role, and hasn't quite got the speed of his time in a centre, but can really create in attack as well. So I see him like he's a different number 14 to what we've seen in the National Rugby League, but he's no less effective than the very best of them. So I think he's going to be a key part of this Warriors side moving forward as well.
Yeah, well, I think you've named the 13 and 14 in the NRL Team of the Year. Hey, Jimmy, just quickly before we let you go, State of Origin, does it come to Auckland?
It should, but it probably won't, Kempy.
Yeah.
And Staffy and Sammy have told me, I'm interested. Oh, what's the appetite like? And they're adamant. You put it on at 10 o'clock. Maybe the residents around Eden Park wouldn't be so happy, but you put it on at 10 o'clock at night and you'd still get a sellout crowd because you guys are used to watching it at that time. I think 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock into the east coast of Australia would be fabulous, but the networks probably won't do that. And if the networks don't want to do it, Kempy,
we know
it ain't going to happen.
I thought there was talk about it being a Sunday afternoon game, Jimmy, so it would more be like maybe a 2 o'clock over in Australia, 4 o'clock here, so it's before
no chance.
All the networks hit.
Well, we've just gone away from doing a Sunday State of Origin, so that would then be a change completely with the schedule. As I say, it should happen, but unfortunately, I think it won't.
All right, Jimmy, we will let you go, mate. And just quickly before we do finish, will the Warriors win the premiership in 2023?
No.
So,
hey, you know what, Jimmy? He's been waiting for someone to agree with him all week.
Good on you, Jimmy. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, lads.
There you go. Jimmy Smith joining us here on Running It Straight. Kempy, the Warriors going to win in 2023?
I'll let you know in a month. I've told you that about half a dozen times.
So you're sitting on the fence,
No, I just don't make I don't throw my sprat line out like you do.
So
you're
sitting but that is the definition of sitting on the fence.
I'm sitting in a big launch, heading out to the open water, and there's about 17 teams on it. So I'm just waiting till a month's time when the.
Who do you think's going to win the Rugby World Cup? No.
At the moment,
you're not allowed to say. You're not allowed to say.
At the moment,
you're not allowed to pick it this far out.
I got no idea.
You're not allowed to pick it this far out, mate.
Come
on.
Maybe France, Ireland, and the All Blacks, I think.
They should seriously change off the back fence to on the fence in the morning.
What you need to do is you need to let it go. You threw it out, you got to own it.
Let's take a break for news, sport and weather. More coming up after that.
Overnight low of 7. We've reached the business end of the FIFA Women's World Cup. Catch all the quarter-final action starting Friday on SENZ.
25, coming up 25 minutes away from 3. Great to catch up with Jimmy Smith. You're going to get through a couple of texts and questions now, and then we will go through the Tigers game this Saturday down in Hamilton. Our first one comes in from Sam saying, after looking at the table, I don't think that the Brisbane 1-2 is locked in as everyone thinks. If Brisbane win all their remaining games and Penrith lose one, we would play Penrith in the first week. Brisbane still have a bye and they are currently equal on points. Penrith still have to play the Eels, who have proved to be a bogey team for them. Interesting 360 led with the Warriors last night, and Dave Riccio predicted we would finish top 2. Also, that Sean Johnson tribute on 360 before 360 last night was fantastic. Kempy, what do you reckon? Because he's got a bit of a point there, Sam, and that's not me, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's a smart comment because there's still a month of football to play. So, there are scenarios to play out. You don't know who's going to come down injured. You don't know who's going to hit the suspension Or, a referee decision, as Graham Annesley came out on the weekend and said the referees made 3 poor decisions, and those can cost teams games. So, the ladder has so much more movement in it in this next month. You've got, I think the Knights here sitting a point in I think is an advantage. They get all their games, and they probably could win all of them in the form that they're playing in at the moment. Then they could sneak up as high as 5th. So, I just think we've got to reassess where everyone's going, like you did this week, where everyone's going after their performances on the weekend. Some of them have got some really tough games, and the Broncos play Melbourne last game. And I'm just saying, when they get to that game, they may have won the last 3, secured themselves there in second place, and decide to rest their players and not lose anyone against Melbourne.
Yeah, because it is all massively hypothetical, because what if the Warriors lose the next 3 games? And what if Penrith lose 3 or 4 themselves? But that is the nature of the NRL season, is that it is just so up and down. Mark says in here, we didn't get to ask Jimmy this, unfortunately, but what's wrong with South Sydney? All the so-called experts still say they can win the whole thing, but time must be running out, especially with Kemp tipping them every week. That's remarked.
Well, yeah, and that's Mark size 12. Look, I just think, they've got St George, Newcastle, they've got a bye still to come, Sydney Roosters to play at home. They can win. They can get those 4 points and still end up with 34 points and end up in 4th position. You know what I mean? And Mark would be going, no, don't say that because you've just put the hoodoos on them. The reality of it is that St George is sitting second last. The Newcastle Knights need the points just as bad as them. They get a bye and then they play Sydney Roosters, who, well, we called it, 4 weeks ago that they weren't going to make the 8. So they've got a dead set chance of finishing really well and with their bye in hand still finishing in 4th position.
Just a couple of comments on the sort of Origin chat, Kempy. Would you rather a State of Origin being brought to New Zealand or an Anzac game?
An Anzac game every day. I would much rather, and I know that they've come out and said there's an international calendar, but they've come out and said that every 4 years. I would much rather just an international Pacific Cup. I think New Zealand need to really forget about Origin coming here. You want to go into Origin, go to the whole experience, go to Brisbane, go down to Caxton, watch the fans whack on the bus, go and sit in there with true Queenslanders and support a Queensland side, or go down to Sydney Football Stadium and support a New South Wales game. That's what that should be about. Bring the Pacific Cup back with the Tongas, Samoans and the Kiwis and play a Pacific Nation Cup here. Mate, that'll be, you pack Mount Eden out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah,
as much as I want to see State of Origin here just for, sort of my own reasons of being able to watch it and how big of an occasion it would be, it just sort of feels wrong to me. Even when they take it away from Brisbane and Sydney, it feels sort of wrong to me. Because it's,
and it does. Jimmy makes a really good point there. No one's going to watch a game of football at 10 o'clock at night. So you're going to go to a game of footy at Eden Park at 10 o'clock at night?
I would, but a lot of people
would with about 10 other people, but I'm not going.
Well, it could be a school. Well, we'll be a school night as well.
By the way, the Eden Park Foundation that say you cannot play any noise after 10 o'clock. The reality of sport being played at 10 o'clock at Eden Park is just not going to happen. And you're not going to get the broadcasters to say, well, you can play it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They've taken it off the afternoon slot already. They ain't going to put it back there for a one-off here in New Zealand.
Got to take a break. When we come back, we might have a look at the Tigers this weekend down in Hamilton. 7:30 kickoff. We have live commentary here on SENZ. It is an away game for the Warriors, although you'd predict about 95% Warriors fans in the crowd. So we'll take a short break, preview that after this.
36-hole winner. He's absolutely brilliant.
Coming up, 2:45 here on SENZ, running it straight, myself and Kempi. This Saturday, 7:30pm, the Tigers taking on the Warriors at FMG Stadium, Waikato in Hamilton. Home game for the Tigers, but there's going to be a lot of Warriors fans in attendance. Just firstly, Kempi, you sort of hope that the Warriors fans give the Tigers a good amount of praise as they come running out onto the pitch for actually bringing a home game here, the only home team to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you think of the season that they had, they've been under so much pressure. They can't buy themselves a halfback. They're letting a really good one go. I was saying, Sammy, you let Luke Brooks go. If you have a look at what the Warriors did, Sean Johnson last year wasn't playing that well. And you've got Andrew Webster comes in and he's got Marata Nuakure, Mitch Barnett. He brings in, players around Sean that can actually help him. And the Tigers take a different route. Instead of helping out Luke Brooks, because there's not that many good halfbacks in the competition, they go around and let Luke Brooks go sign to Manly. Now they're chasing third-grade halfbacks as far as I'm concerned. And then they've got this coaching issue where you don't know if Tim Sheens is going to last, if Benji's going to be the next coach, Justin Holbrook might be going there. And then they bring their home game here. You know what I mean? When they're sitting rooted to the bottom of the table. I actually don't think they're going that bad. I think that it'll be a lot closer than people think on the weekend.
100%. I actually, especially the last couple of games I've watched, the Tigers actually are competing. They're certainly not playing like a team that's in 17th.
No.
They're a lot more competitive than that. They're just, and they're close games. They're not getting blown off the park like perhaps they were earlier in the season and last year. So I've seen a big turnaround in them. I'll run through the team list quickly for you. The Warriors, just the one major change, and that's Taine to Opiki starting at fullback because Charles Nicol-Klukstad, of course, out with the HIA protocol. Watini Zelezniak, Montoya on the wings, Berry, Pompey in the centres, Luke Metcalf, Sean Johnson in the halves, and you've got Whanua Blake, Mitch Barnett, the starting props, Wade Egan, the number 9, Jackson Foreman, Atania Kore in the second row, Tohu Harris, the 13. That means Dylan Walker, Jazz Tavanga is on the bench from the outset this week as opposed to coming in as the extended man, Bailey Sirinen and Josh Curran. So, it's good for Andrew Webster at the moment. Kempi's able to sort of name a relatively similar 17 from week to week, just a minor change there with Taine to Opiki instead of Chance.
Yeah, and they're not carrying anyone to cover Wade Egan. If you're thinking about Wade Egan gets a knock in it, and it's highly probable, that he runs into an HIA sooner or later. Well, who's he going to throw there in a hooker? And of course, you're going to go to Jazz Tavaga or Dylan Walker. You're going to lose that impact. That I think is really critical to the way that they're playing. The other one in and around having Taine at fullback is that everyone's looking about can Taine carry the football. Offensively, he gets himself around, he beats people, and that it's not about that. Like, the reason that their defence is really good is because of the way that Charles Nicol-Klokstad can organise his middle players and his edges into the right position and identify the threat. This is going to be a really big game for Taine defensively. And I'm not talking about pulling tackles off, whether or not he can do the same as what Chance does and getting his players organised. And you see, you don't have any room for flexibility here. Because if he misses a call and he gets a player in a wrong spot, like anyone in the NRL is going to spot it. And you got to remember he's coming out of 9 for the Tigers and Api Kurasau. He gets a player in the wrong spot, Api Kurasau is going to expose that.
Yeah, the side for the Tigers are in Buller at the fullback, David Nofaluma and Asu Kapai on the and Junior Tupa on the wings, then Stafford Toa and Asu Kapai in the centres, Dane Laurie and Luke Brooks in the halves, Stefano Utukamanu and David Clemmer the props, Apisa Korosau as the hooker, Isaiah Pabaliti, John Bateman and Whanua Pole the back rows, and Jake Simpkin, Alex Seafarth, Alex Twal, Sean Bloor on the interchange. Where's the big battle this weekend, Kempi?
Oh, look, it's not a bad side, is it? Like a big forward pack. Isaiah Papali'i is coming home. John Bateman, he's a jack in a box. You don't know what he's going to turn up with. And Stefano Utukamanu is back in the side after having a bit of a break because of an HIA. That's where it's won, mate. The forward pack. If the forwards for the West Tigers can't lay a line for Luke Brooks and Dane Laurie, who's going pretty well, then they're just going to get taken apart by Sean Johnson, who's in absolute career best form. I like this young kid Jareem Buller at the back, the fullback, the young 19-year-old. I think he's a player of the future, man. If I had some money, I'd be throwing it at him left, right, and centre because I don't think there's that many or as good a fullback running around with so much potential. But this is another one of those Warrior games, mate. It's there for them. They would expect to win this and win this handsomely. I'm just a little bit cautious of HIA. You know, it's got to. We just got to. It's going to play a part. I just hope it doesn't play a part this weekend.
Weather forecast for Hamilton, Kemp, isn't looking good either. A lot of rain expected on Saturday evening. Now, we have seen with the Roosters and Rabbitohs game, the Warriors struggling in the wet. What's Sandra Webster got to be aware of, taking the lessons from those two games, if it is going to be wet on Saturday night?
Oh, look, I don't think he's even revisited those games. I think he's looking at the Gold Coast game, and he's done what you've identified straight off, Sammy, and he's told the boys, don't worry about going wide. Let's play this game in the middle of the park and really dominate the middle of the forwards. We called this about a month ago. We said between now and the end of the season, the Warriors really have to settle on their middle of the park play and build towards the finals. They don't have the luxury of chopping it in and out of that form week in, week out. If you have a look at the good teams, the Penriths, for instance, they don't change. You know what you're getting every week. They're going to challenge you in the same spot every single week. And I think what Webster is going to be saying to his players this week is go back to what we know. You know, go back to what works really well for us. Tohu dominating that middle, Dylan dominating off the bench, and you've got your Jazz Tavagas, your Noah Cortez, your Mitch Barnetts, and of course the other good forward in Aiden Whanua-Blake just running through that park at will. So they go away from that, then I can see the Tigers getting pretty close.
Can you give us a prediction, Kempy, or is it too far out?
No. I think it's going to be close. I think the Warriors still get it. I think they get it in a close one, but I don't think it's by much. I think it's probably 12 and under.
Okay. And you're going to give us an end-time try score, or we wait till Saturday evening?
Wait till Saturday. I know you tried to get one out of me already, but...
we broke the streak on Friday night, but I'm going to put that down to you not being here.
I wasn't here, mate. I wasn't here, you know. And I'd actually about 6 beers deep too by the time you asked me, so I wasn't really thinking about it. I was looking at a hooker LeBron down in Riccarton and whether or not he was going to win the next race, because I had plenty on it. So,
sure.
Mate, I think I could pick a try scorer.
It's going to be your first try scorer, Kempy.
I've got one in my head.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We'll wait till Saturday.
You'll be surprised.
Live commentary at 7:30 will be on air from 7 if you want to tune in. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll have a look at just some of the other big games over the weekend, get some predictions on those. Running it straight with 3.5 minutes away from 3, we'll hand over to the run home with Kirsten Beeve after 3, but we'll just quickly go through the NRL games. The other games on over the course of round 24, starting tomorrow night at 9:50 with the Seagulls and the Panthers from Four Pines in Sydney. Kempi, pretty pedestrian, you'd think, for Penrith.
You don't know. Well, you don't know what you're getting with the Seagulls, even at home. And the Panthers are building nicely, mate. They should win that one.
I sort of relate or equate the Seagulls to sort of Warriors teams of the past, Kempy, where you must just be so frustrated as a fan. Like you said, some weeks you're getting a team that can beat sides in the top 4. The next week you're getting teams, losing to teams in the bottom 8.
Frustrating,
yeah, very frustrating. Sharks Titans Friday night at 8 p.m. That is from PointsBet in Sydney. The Sharks turning around the fortunes last week against the Rabbitohs. Can they continue it against the Titans?
Yeah, I think so. At home, I think they get the Titans.
Titans getting Tino back.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter in the middle of the park. I just think that one win's change the Sharks season again. They could finish as high as 6th.
Broncos Eels the late night on Friday. And
Good
that's
game.
At Gabba in Brisbane. What do you reckon?
Broncos.
How close?
Oh, I know that the Eels go right up there too normally. A close one.
Close, 12 and under.
Yep.
Rabbitohs Dragons. This one's in Cairns.
Yep.
The Rabbitohs heavy favourites in that one per the bookies.
And I reckon first try scorer Latrell Mitchell.
Okay, there you go. He's got something to prove after last week.
100%.
Roosters Dolphins on Saturday. There's the late game at 9:35 from Allianz. Interesting one, that one.
Yeah, the Dolphins, they're there or thereabouts, but defensively they've got some big lapses in them and players playing all over the place, so I'm going to go the Roosters with that one.
Yeah, and as great as Val Tafadi has been playing on attack defensively, he is getting caught out big time on that edge. Storm Raiders is the Sunday game at 4 p.m.
Yeah, big game. I'm picking the Storm here. Pappenhausen's back. He'll get one. So
Is he
jump
back?
on him anytime try score.
I don't know if he is coming back this week.
I'll tell you what, he'll come back in the number 48 jersey.
Okay. If he does, that would be a massive inclusion for them. He did look pretty good as well in his in the reserve grade. So what side was he playing for? Was the
Got no idea what they
Jets?
call it.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact name. And then finally, Knights Bulldogs on Sunday at 6:05. That's from McDonald's Jones Stadium, Newcastle.
5 in a row. Like when I was over there, you got to remember this. Only 6 weeks ago, Aidan O'Brien didn't have a job.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And now five games later, they're sitting inside the 8, and Kalen Ponga is career best form. So
I do just wonder about the Bulldogs at the moment, Kibby, starting to sort of get some guys back in. That forward pack starting to go back to the side that they had at the beginning of the season. It's, I don't know, ripe for an upset potentially.
Knights at home, full stadium. I reckon the crowd comes back.
And they're riding the confidence too. Like it just keeps, the more you win, obviously, the more confidence you get. Yeah. And it feels a little bit like that with Newcastle.
They're used to winning. So I'm picking the Knights in that.
All right, so there you go. Those are predictions over the weekend. As I said, live commentary of the Warriors Tigers on Saturday night from Hamilton, live here on SENZ, but that's running it straight for another week. I will be back next Wednesday. I'm sure all of our predictions will be blown out of the water and we'll be changing our tune. I probably will be, given the heat that I copped this week, Kempy. But we will be back to revisit it all.
It gets cooler.
Next Wednesday.
Just take that blanket off.
The run home coming up with Kirsten Beeve after 3.